And here to tell us more about Zero Co and other advocacies is environmental activist slash impact entrepreneur Mike Smith. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
I can't tell you how thrilled we are to finally have you on the show. Not yet in the flesh. We're working on that in about a month's time. But today we're very excited to hear all about your story. Lots of interesting experiences that you have to share with us. But my first question right now is really an immense curiosity about how you started being an impact entrepreneur. Tell us about that.
So I went on this big crazy trip around the world a couple of years ago with my wife Alyssa, and we traveled to like some of the most remote and far-flung corners of the planet. And I was just blown away by the amount of rubbish that I saw in some really remote places, and it really affected me. And so I came back to Australia a couple of years ago and said, as woefully unqualified as I am to try and tackle the global waste problem, that's what I'm going to spend the next the next chapter of my life trying to solve. And so I've spent the last 3 years of my life trying to work out how do we build scalable solutions to the global waste problem.
Right. The global waste problem definitely really impacts our oceans the most. Is this why you decided to focus on ocean cleanups and river cleanups?
Yeah, totally. So like the way that I look at the world and like look at this problem is to solve the global waste problem, there's two things we have to do. First of all, we have to stop buying, using and throwing away single-use plastic. And then we need to work out a way to go and get all of the single-use plastic that's made its way into the world's oceans and rivers out of there. And so I built this company called Zero Co, and we're trying to solve both those problems. So we make zero waste household essentials, stuff that you use every single day at your home, laundry liquid, dishwashing liquid, shampoo, conditioner, and we deliver all of those to your home, minus all the single-use plastic. And then we use the proceeds from the sale of those products to go and fund ocean cleanups all around the world.
The process for how it started was obviously you were aghast about, all of the tremendous trash problem that you saw in your travels. But was the process of creating a business secondary to what you wanted to do to fund these cleanup drives?
Well, it all started with this kind of insight that, like, to solve this problem, we've got to do both of those things that I just spoke about. We've got to stop using single-use plastic, and then we've got to work out a way to clean up the ocean. And so my whole thing was like, let's build a company that does both of those things. If we can make some products that help people reduce the amount of waste at their home, that's a start. And then if we use the proceeds from the sale of those products to go and do ocean cleanups, then we'll achieve the goal. And so over the last couple of years, we've removed about 32 million water bottles worth of rubbish from oceans and rivers all around the world. And over the last kind of 6 months, we've been really focusing in on the Philippines and doing a bunch of cleanups in your part of the world.
Speaking of cleanups in my part of the world, and I feel you about the single-use plastic waste. I mean, the Philippines is one of the biggest contributors to single-use plastic with over, I would say, 2.7 million tons each year, and 20% of that ends up in the ocean. So we are so reassured that companies like Zero Co and efforts like yours are in existence. Recently, you did a massive viral cleanup at the Taguig-Pateros River. Tell us about that. How did it start, and what was the journey and logistics of that?
Yeah, really, it's been a really interesting journey. So probably like 7 or 8 months ago, I came on a trip to the Philippines because we read a research report that said that the Philippines was one of the largest contributors to ocean waste. And so I came to the Philippines just to have a look around and like meet local people, understand what the scale of the problem was like. And we realized that there's this really big problem. And so then we decided we're going to build a local team in the Philippines. So we've got 10 local Filipinos who work for us now doing ocean cleanups. And we just went and started scoping out lots of local locations, working with the local government, with the DENR, to find locations and then go and do some cleanups. So
it took around, was it a little over a week? I heard you cleaned up about 100,000 kilograms of trash, about 7,000 sacks collected with interesting products collected, might I add?
Yeah, so we were in the Tagiga River for 15 days. So the first 5 days was kind of clearing the hyacinths, the water hyacinths, and kind of some of the vegetation that had grown in the river. And then we spent the next 10 days removing the rubbish that had built up in that area. It was about 100,000 kilos, which is about it's the equivalent of about 8 million water bottles worth of rubbish. So it was a massive effort, and it was, a real community-based effort. There was, our team, there was the local government, there was the DENR, the Masons came down, the local barangay provided some resources. So it was a real, local community-based cleanup, which was really amazing and awesome to see.
So after that entire cleanup session, is there a process that you leave behind in the community? Is there something that you talk about with the local government units? And I would say, well, we call here the Estero Rangers or the Waterway Rangers. Is there processes that you help people that live by the river perhaps change their lives and be more conscious of how they throw and dispose of their waste?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So we're working really closely with the Estero Rangers. We have a local project manager called Francis Chow, who's a Filipino, and he has direct daily contact with the barangays, with the DENR, with the Estero Rangers, looking for locations that need cleanups, looking for locations that need assistance. So our priority right now is part one of our project is identify the dirtiest locations, the dirtiest rivers. How do we go into those locations and get as much rubbish as we can out of there? And then the next phase of our project is to start working with local school groups, local community groups to do some education processes to make sure that the local community understand that the way that the rubbish gets into the river is because people are putting rubbish in there. So how do we build processes and systems and education to make sure that the local communities understand that they have a role in the problem and also a really important role in the solution.
So, Mike, I'm just curious. After you select a location to clean up, and like you say, you work with them to try and leave behind lessons so they would not get in the same situation. Is there a monitoring system that you sort of head back and say, how are these guys doing? Are they doing the same things all over again? And what are the experiences that you have had if that happened?
Yeah, so at the moment we don't have a monitoring system. Phase one of this project is just go and find the dirtiest locations, find the areas that have got the biggest problem, and get as much of the rubbish out of there as we can. That's priority number one, so that the rubbish doesn't go into the ocean, doesn't get eaten by fish, which then goes into our food stream. I'm sure you don't want to eat plastic. I don't want to eat plastic. I don't think anyone wants to eat plastic. So phase one is just get the rubbish out of the river so it doesn't go into the food stream. Once we've scaled up our operation to do that, the next phase is to how do we go back to locations, do monitoring, and make sure that the rivers remain clean.
So what is next for Mike Smith and his viral cleanup adventure? Are you planning to come back to the Philippines or maybe visit different parts of Asia? And if you're coming back soon here, which areas are you planning to, I would say, tremendously impact?
Yeah, so I'll be back in the Philippines in a couple of weeks. So our next cleanup is in July. So our team are out literally traveling around the Philippines over the last week and a little bit. I know there's been a typhoon there, which has impacted our travel and kind of scoping exercises, but our team are traveling all around the Philippines at the moment, looking for our next location. And I'll be back on the ground in a couple of weeks. The first week of July is the goal for our next cleanup. And we'll be there for kind of 2 weeks, and hoping to have as big an impact as we had at our last cleanup in the Tagiga River.
Any particular rivers that you have in mind? We have a million esteros that are in need of care, TLC.
Yes, yeah, you do have lots and lots of esteros, and I think that's one of the interesting challenges about the Philippines is there's a really big population, not a very big landmass when you compare it to where I live in Australia, this really big landmass, not a lot of people, not a lot of rivers. So we're building this hit list of rivers that need attention. And so, yeah, in the next couple of days, hopefully we're going to identify the next set of rivers we're going to be targeting. And we'll be there in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, just to make a quick mention of it, the Taguig-Pateros River is just a tributary to the Pasig River, which is actually deemed as one of the dirtiest rivers in the world. That would be a monumental task. I'm just wondering if you have, that behemoth plan in mind somewhere in the future.
We do. So like our plan is to like scale our operation in the Philippines to be as big as we can, to have as big an impact as we can, to go after the biggest, areas of concern.
Okay, last but not the least, the trash problem, as you mentioned earlier, is really also a behavioral problem. It's really the things that we do that we think are okay, nobody's looking, somebody else's issue. If there was one behavior or I would say suggestion that you can give people right now listening around the globe of how to change the world for the better, what would it be?
Look, I'm very mindful that I am a white man from a privileged country. So my whole intention of coming to the Philippines has been to help and to do what I can to support the Filipino community to solve the problem. And the thing that I say to everyone is we only have one planet, one ocean, and we all share it. So it's up to all of us to do our own little bit to help solve this problem. And you don't have to do a lot, you can just do a little. And so like if millions and millions and millions of people around the world just make a small, tiny change today, it will add up to a big impact. So for the people in the Philippines, that might be something as simple as just deciding to buy one less single-use plastic item today. And if everyone in the Philippines did that, it would add up to a really massive impact. And then if everyone in the world did that, it would be an even bigger impact. So I think it's about small changes done daily by lots and lots of people around the world.
Excellent thoughts to think about. We're very excited to have you back in the Philippines and in the studio, but we're also excited to see where the cleanup drive of ZeroCo and your company goes next. Thank you so much for your time and input today.
Amazing. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you in a few weeks in the Philippines.
See you then.